Well, hello. My name is Clay Lamb, and I'm the host today on Ask the Chimney Sweep. And before we jump into the podcast, I wanted to take a couple of minutes and answer a couple of questions that have come into our blog post, Ask the Chimney Sweep.
Okay, Clay, looking into our letters here. Today, we have a question about a chimney cap. Looks like our homeowner has a problem with their chimney cap and doesn't really know where to go.
Well, let's do it this way. First off, you got to know the flue size. Flue sizes for most fireplaces are probably 8 by 13 or 8 by 12, or they're what they call it 12-12 or 13-13. Let's call it 8 by 13 or 13 by 13. So you get a rectangle or a square. Now, most chimney caps are available at your local big box store, but I highly recommend the stainless steel cap. I just think it's a better investment for the job you're doing there. And a lot of homeowners feel comfortable getting up on a roof. A lot of people shouldn't be up on a roof because knees and just back and I've seen a lot of people put up Christmas lights. That scares me when I see where they're at up there, Randall. I just hate when I see people like that, and I'll roll over and talk to them real quick. If I can help you out, I can hold the ladder for you, because it's a dangerous thing when you get up on a rooftop, and you better feel real comfortable. And when I train guys here in Cincinnati, I say, let's check your sea legs, or you feel comfortable on a rooftop.
I'm afraid of heights, so yeah, you won't ever see me on a roof.
Good. You know what the most important thing you just said? I don't want to be there. You don't want to be on that rooftop. And that's not where you should be. You have other skills and talents, and that's what you should utilize. And I've actually hired guys and asked them to get on a roof that I don't climb. I thought, wait a minute, I think you're in the wrong industry.
Yeah. I saw a lot of that when I was tree logging. A lot of climbers climbing trees. Turns out they quit because they're just afraid to get up in the tree.
Wait a minute. What's this tree logging thing you're talking about? What are you talking about?
Yeah, I was doing tree logging for a while back. I was on the ground. I never got up in the tree, but Clean Cut is companies out in Milford.
Really?
Yeah, I was just the grounds guy.
Well,
so. And that's what I always tell them. I'm staying on the ground. You get up in the tree.
That's right.
But it was crazy how many people quit just because they realized they were afraid of heights.
Well, you know what? You know your boundaries. That's what it is in life, isn't it? Know your boundaries, know what you want to do and don't do. I'm claustrophobic. We're confessing our faults to one another. We may be healed. That's what the Bible says.
Yeah, it's making us stronger.
That's right. All right, let's go back to chimney caps. So I'm going to say stainless steel, the right flue tile size. Here's another thing, Randall. You know, we call those flue caps, have one flue venting from a fireplace, but you might get up there and have another one for a hot water heater or a furnace flue, and you need all three of those. Now, there's what they call multi-flue caps, and that might cover what they call the whole top of the chimney or chimney chase, and I like those. We have some pictures. Folks, we're actually going to put some links in this, affiliate links that people that we've worked with and like, and their quality, their products. I can't use all the products we've got links for. We'll probably have 150 links out there, but our affiliate links are ones that we looked at and said, yeah, that works a good value for a customer. We really go out of our way to look on Amazon and say this is good or bad or ugly.
I mean, these are products you've used for years and years.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, Clay has plenty of experience being 30 years in this industry with fireplaces.
Don't tell them how old I am.
Well, that was just, I mean, I guess, yeah, maybe they could put together your age from that, but I was just talking about your career experience.
I got some great career experience. I've learned from a lot of great people. You know, that's part of life, learning from great people and gathering that information and sharing. I call it playing tag. Who are you going to play tag with? Who are you going to share that love with or information?
Yeah, it's all about just sharing and making everybody know what they're doing.
You know, just so people know, we have a website called Ask the Chimney Sweep, and you're probably listening to it right now on our podcast, Ask the Chimney Sweep. But we also have a written blog site, Ask the Chimney Sweep. And we also have a YouTube channel. Gosh, it's getting close to 200 videos now, and gosh, I think we're at 3.5 million downloads.
Yeah.
Now. I don't know, we're just climbing. And
we have a great audience, too.
There's people who want to understand about the fireplace. Randall, here's something really interesting. I was on a Gary Sullivan show. I don't know if you folks know who Gary Sullivan is. He's a handyman, do-it-yourself guy that sells a lot of products on radio, but he answers a lot of great questions for people. And I asked Gary, I said, Gary, who are these people? He goes, Clay, majority of them will never do the work themselves, but they want to know the right questions to ask their contractor. That made a lot of sense to me.
I love learning all this stuff because it makes me more knowledgeable, but I'm probably never going to execute a lot of these things.
And that's okay.
But it does help me know how to handle a lot of homeowner problems. Just even if it's something I'm never going to do,
Exactly.
That information's still valuable in a lot of other things.
Good stuff, man. So we got the cap up there, it's sewn that way. Also, the cap shouldn't fit right down on the flue tile. You want it about 6 or 8 inches above there. You want those gases to come up out of that chimney, able to vent. That's one important thing. And I just like the ones that mount up there. And I actually, a lot of times it's a flue tile. I take some what they call flue glue or silicone and just put it on the base of that and tighten that down. It keeps that stability of the chimney cap. Stainless steel lasts a lifetime. I've had very few problems with stainless steel ones. And I like the chase covers, the big ones. And I think that's pretty well covered for somebody with our pictures and videos and stuff about chimney chase covers and affiliate links. You're ready to go to work. Well, today I'm driving over to Richmond, Indiana. I'm going to see my friend Chris Pryor, and we're going to talk a little bit about the top-down burn. Yes, a unique way of starting a fire. I think it's really well worth listening. I've learned about this years ago, but I didn't really understand the science behind it and really the environmental value and how clean it really burns. Starting your fire with a large piece of wood on the bottom, oh, what the heck. I'll let Chris explain it.
Like that old saying, they all laughed at me till I sat down and played. That's basically what the top burn is.
Well, I'm with my buddy Chris Pryor here, and we're going to talk about that top-down burn that we had mentioned early in the show. Chris, I'd really like you to open this up and really explain the value and how to build and fire up a top-down burn fire.
All right, let's talk about the top-down burn. That might be something that some of you have heard of, but I'm sure there's going to be quite a few that have not. And it's just a different method of kindling a fire than what 90% of the country is used to. You know, with a conventional fire, you know, you have your grate and you put a wad of newspaper down and some kindling and start crisscrossing and haphazardly placing your wood on top. And then you would actually light it from underneath with the several sheets of newspaper, and off it burns. And if you were to really analyze the way that fire burns, like an emissions and efficiency point of view, you know, it's actually a very dirty, inefficient fire. And that's the way we were all taught as far back as the Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts. You were taught how to incorrectly build a fire. Now what happens is that as a fire, one thing you got to understand is when the way wood burns, it's not so much the fiber of the wood burning as it is that there's a potential amount of flammable gases in wood. When as the wood heats up, it gives off flammable gases, and it's actually the gases that ignite. So when you build a fire in the conventional fashion with a tremendous amount of wood on top of a very small flame, that flame gets going, and it's almost like a chain reaction. It builds momentum. It heats up all the rest of the wood that's around it. Size of the wood is very large relative to the small bit of flame that you have. It's not very effective at gasifying and burning it. So you get a lot of incomplete combustion, probably see visible smoke. And it's amazing how you can tell a lot from the color of the flame. If you get like an orangey kind of dirty, smoky flame, that's actually pretty bad.
Let's talk about emissions.
Sure, let's talk about emissions for a minute. Let's look at that dirty orange flame right there. That's a flame you get in other words, it's not a very hot flame. There's a lot of particulate matter and unburned gases that are running up through it. And typical case would be if you saw one of these celebratory outdoor bonfires and you've got flames racing 30, 50, 100 feet up in the air, and sparks flying around and dark smoke and flame so orangey that you can't even see through it. That's a pretty dirty burn. Wood really doesn't want to be burned that way. Way more efficient. If you have good emissions, good combustion, the flame should actually be like translucent. You should be able to see through it. It should be a much deeper color, reds and into the blues, and in the best case, even green color flame. You know, that's a sign of a much more efficient burn.
Let's talk about the wood, the way it should be seasoned, and stacking it. Most important, why it should be stacked in a specific way.
Okay, well, if you want to just 1 second talk about just wood in general,
Good.
I think that wouldn't be a bad
Let's
thing.
do that.
Okay. Right. Another good important thing is your firewood pile. The very first Masonry Heater Association meeting I went to, probably 25, 30 years ago, there was this really amazing speaker from Germany that was talking. You know, he said the most important part of a masonry heater or a fireplace or a wood stove, the most important part of that is the woodshed. It's amazing. I mean, good, dry, well-seasoned hardwood, so important for getting something to burn properly. If you're purchasing wood, has been cut in the last 6 months, or even say it was cut 2 years ago and never split, just laying in a pile in the woods, it really doesn't season. There's a lot of chemically locked moisture in the wood that it just takes time for that to evaporate away.
How do you tell it's not seasoned?
Okay, good thing. I'm sure some of you have had this happen where throw a few pieces of wood on your fire, and before long you hear sizzling and actually see foam coming out of the ends of the logs, like a rabid dog is frothing at the mouth. And again, that's you before that wood will burn, you have to boil off all of that water that's in there. And it's amazing how much energy it takes to do that would otherwise be heating your house and helping to produce a clean burning fire. So unseasoned wood is probably the number one problem that people have with their wood burning heating systems. So how do you start? Well, first of all, if you can get to the point where you're purchasing your firewood or processing your own firewood a year ahead, that would be the ideal situation. And I know it doesn't always happen that way. But the longer the wood can season stacked, ideally it's in a place where the sun can get at it and there's a nice airflow through it. So you don't want to stack your wood on the ground and cover it up, hermetically seal it up with a tarp. You want to be able to let the air flow. If anything, just put a little cover over the top of it. And don't densely pack it. You need to have air moving through it. It's very, very important. The air, as much as anything else, will help drive the moisture out of it.
How do you know if it is seasoned? Sounding, cracks on the end?
Sure. And again, good, like if you're purchasing wood and you hear the claims, oh, we're selling seasoned firewood, seasoned hardwood. And in some cases, seasoned means it's air dried on the truck on the way over. But one good way to tell is like the butt ends of the logs should show signs of cracking. And when the wood cracks like that, it's actually shrinking as it dries out. And again, the grayer the wood, the better. And it shouldn't be sticky. And it shouldn't, like when you pick up a piece of wood, it shouldn't feel heavier than you expected it to. It should actually be fairly light. And another good test is if you take two split logs and bang them together, it should have a good hollow sound to it. You don't want it to be kind of a dull thud sound. And the bark should be fairly loose. In a lot of cases, in certain species, you should literally be able to peel the bark off in your hands. And, with the bark removed, believe it or not, it will actually season more quickly. And the smaller the wood is cut, the better it burns and the faster it'll season as well.
Well, folks, we're going to take a break for our sponsors, but I want to break back and finish this up. I think you're going to join us, so stay tuned. Guess who I've got with me? Randall. I'm going to just leave it at Randall. How you doing, Randall?
How's it going? I'm doing well.
Let's tell the people what you do here.
So I'm the producer of sorts in the studio. I run the podcast, or I edit the podcast. I just do a lot of production things around the house.
You sure do. We stick everything on you. If it could be blog writing, it could be video, it could be anything to do with the media platforms. And I guess we want to also talk about, we do
Affiliate marketing.
Affiliate marketing. Yeah, let's tell the people why we did it. We've got a little sick and tired of begging and telling people to buy things, and we've just decided we're going to use affiliate marketing people. That way we can offer a whole lot more products to our audience out there. And the way that works, folks, is we get a small commission, a stipend, if you want to call it, on some products that we get to offer to you. And if you are kind enough to support us by using these products, we get a few dollars and put that in a till, and we actually get to spend it on more production equipment, don't we, Randall?
That's what we want. Nothing more than that.
We'll never get rich at this, but it sure is fun.
We have fun for sure.
Well, folks, I want to thank you very much for stopping by here. And what we want to talk about today is probably a product called Crown Coat. This is an affiliate product that we use all the time in our service company here in Cincinnati. Crown Coat actually goes on the top of the chimney, kind of painted on, I guess you want to call it. And when we do that, it's actually coating the top of the chimney, and you run it up to the bottom of the flue tile. Great product, great warranty, and it solves a lot of problems. flue tile gets heated up from gases going through it or smoke coming out of it, it expands. And if it was properly built the first time, there would have been an expansion joint, something to cushion that expansion. And if it's not there, it will crack that crown. And guess what happens in wintertime? Freeze, thaw, and down comes the chimney crown. All right, folks, you can solve this problem by using a great product by Saver System, Crown Coat. And let's jump back into the podcast. Let's jump into how to stack this wood for a top-down burn.
Well, and again, we talked earlier about a top-down burn, and there was kind of a specific pattern to stacking the wood in your fireplace, your wood stove. And unlike your conventional fire with a top burn, you want your largest wood to be at the bottom. So let's say an average size, most people firewood when they get it is about 16 inches long. If you had 3 logs side by side, want them to be about as wide as the log is long. You would say your first course, you'd want 3 pieces pointing front to back with just enough room for your fingers between them. That's the size they should be, so that 3 logs would fit in 16 inches wide.
Don't hesitate, get your hands above your shirt level. That way, if you remove your hands, that's fine.
Gotcha.
Just get your hands up
Sure.
in here because they can't see it.
Yeah, gotcha. Let's say our wood's 16 inches long, all right? So if we had a 16 by 16 square, that way your logs are going front to back and left to right, all right? So let's put 3 logs in that 16-inch square, and they're big enough so just your finger will fit between the 2. Then we'll do our second course, and we're gonna actually have 4 pieces of wood sized so that your fingers will fit between them. So obviously the logs are going to be just a tiny bit smaller. Now we decrease in size again. We're going to make 5 pieces of wood fit in that 16 inches with your fingers between them. So obviously again, they're going to be slightly smaller. And we carry this up through crisscrossing each layer as we go till we get to the point where we're around 6 or 7 pieces. They're going to be pretty small, probably about that big around, like the size of your eyeglass, right? That size piece of wood. And we're going to switch over to kindling. And that's like old 2x4 scraps. Softwood makes the best kindling. If you can find some red cedar, that is like the Don Perignon of kindling. Such straight grain that with like a little penknife, you could whittle tiny little shavings off with it. So, and again, our kindling, want to start with like finger-sized pieces and finally get down to almost like shavings would be wonderful. And unlike a conventional built fire where you might use 3 or 4 full sheets, almost a whole Sunday paper worth of newspaper to get it going, we want to have glorified 4 little, the size of a slice of white bread, pieces of newspaper crumbled up, like 4 little fuses sitting on top. And all the newspaper does, it gives you a place to transfer the flame from your match to. So to light this, we would actually light the match and then one at a time light the 4 little fuses. And again, as far as how tall, if I was going to be building like a celebratory top burn fire out at the campground or out in your backyard in your fire ring, I'd like to do it about, I'd say 4 feet high or so. That would be like a 3-3, 4-4, 5-5, 6-6, 7-7, and kindling will get you up about 4 feet high. Now, in your fireplace, obviously, you're not going to build a 4-foot high fire. It would be quite extraordinary to do that. So most fireplaces, they're about a little better than 2 feet high. So just a simple 3-3 or 3-4, 5, 6, 7 type pattern will get you right up to about the top of the opening. And that's actually a good place to build your fire for a number of reasons. And as many of you may know, that when you're first lighting a fire, especially if it hasn't burned for a good long time, that may be hard to get going. You may have just a very stagnant draft, and you have visions of lighting a newspaper torch and holding it up inside to try and get the draft reversed. Well, by building the top burn fire nice and high like that, and you're lighting the newspaper, that's basically acting like that newspaper torch that you hold in there until you can't do it anymore and burn your fingers. So by lighting the top burn fire, that initial fire helps get the draft going. And as it starts to build, it slowly drives some of that stagnant moisture out, preheats the smoke chamber, which is that little bit of an area just above the damper that you open and close. So why do a top-down burn? There's actually a number of good reasons that you'd want to do that. I mean, number one, in terms of efficiency and emissions, it's amazing how much cleaner a top burn fire builds. Another thing is that, we actually did testing at the lab here where we had two identical stacks of wood. They weighed the same moisture content, same species, and we tested one fire conventionally burned and one fire with a top burn. These are the two filters right here that you can see. The conventionally burned one, particulate matter it collected was tremendous. And the other filter, I mean, it's like you might have stained a latte on it. It's pretty clean. So from the same amount of wood, it's actually quite remarkable. So that's the one benefit. The other benefit is that once you get this thing built and light it, not only is it going to be better for the fireplace, it's going to get it preheated, help dry it out, a lot less thermal shock, is that once it's lit, you're not going to have to tend that for a few hours. You can just sit back and enjoy one tier lights, then slowly the next and the next. It's almost mesmerizing to watch. You'll see flame color like you've never seen before, and you won't have to tend it. With a typical fire, once you light it, you're up poking it, you're adding wood, you're fussing with it. That's kind of a pain in the neck. If you're busy cooking or trying to do something, you don't want to be a slave to the fire. So with the top-down burn, it lasts for a good long time, and it's a really amazing thing. Plus, if you have friends over and they've never seen this before, they're going to be, what the heck are you doing? And just don't worry. They're going to be laughing at you and thinking it's the most insane thing in the world. And they'll all be eating crow at the end when they see how wonderful it works. Like that old saying, they all laughed at me till I sat down and played. That's basically what the top burn is. Let's talk about clearances to combustibles with your masonry fireplace. Some you wouldn't normally think about, but there's certain areas where it's quite critical that you have a good bit of space between your structure and any kind of wall surface or floor surface that's combustible. And some of them are like, especially places you wouldn't normally think about. If you have the fireplace centrally located in the house, it's not like on an outside wall where the bulk of the fireplace is bumped out into your backyard. There might be other partition walls or other rooms behind your fireplace. And one thing that's really critical is that there's like a 4-inch airspace between the back of the masonry and any wall surface that you may have, or a bookshelf or anything like that. There's a tremendous amount of radiation that takes place in the fireplace. And when you're building them, there's codes that dictate what the wall thicknesses should be, like behind your firebox, on the side of your firebox, on the front, at the hearth extension. And it's quite important that these are followed, because there's, like I say, during the course of a fire, it's amazing how much heat builds up in that masonry structure, and it radiates through. And if you've got stuff that's too close, it can actually, over time, it could catch fire.
Let's talk about pyrolysis.
Right.
What it is.
You may find this occurring in houses with fireplaces that are, say, 20, 30 years old. And there's never been a problem, never been an issue. Then all of a sudden, one Christmas morning, you're burning the wrapping paper and you catch the house on fire. And the reason for that is it's a process called pyrolysis. And what that is, as wood, it's kind of might be buried in the wall behind the fireplace, or underneath your hearth, or off to the sides, or just behind the mantle, buried in the wall. Over time, as it heats and cools and heats and cools, it slowly, without the presence of oxygen, it's essentially turning into charcoal, and like if you went down to the local lumber yard and bought a piece of wood, like a 2x4, and tried to ignite it, it might take 400 or 500 degrees for that to light. But if that's buried in the wall and heated and cooled over 20 years or so, you may find that it may only take just under 200 degrees for that to ignite after a long period of time. So here on that Christmas morning, you're burning the wrapping paper and getting a raging fire like you may not have had in quite a long time. And it's amazing how many house structure fires there are on Christmas Day for just that reason. That hearth that sits out in front of your fireplace, there's not supposed to be any wood underneath there. So if you have a basement and you went downstairs, you don't want to see the floor joist running right up to the foundation. You should actually see a metal pan there that the concrete's poured on, and it should be thick. You don't want to see a case where your hearth extension, a half a dozen tiles that are glued to the floor. Again, that is a really bad thing. Hearth extension on a small fireplace, it needs to be 16 inches deep. And on a larger one, 20 inches deep. And personally, I think it should be 24, And again, you see some real horror stories. And for me, it's heartbreaking. Somebody, their life dream was to buy a home, and they've saved up all their money, and then they're taking it on good faith that a fireplace is in good working order. Then a short period of time, their house is burned down and their lives are a shamble over something that was improperly built. It's crazy. There are unbelievable amount of time bombs sitting out there. I've seen in the 38 years I've been doing this, just countless cases where problems. And then again, there's a few little things you should look for, like that hearth, whether it's raised or flush with the floor. If you see a big gap where it meets the wall of the fireplace, the vertical wall, that should give you an indication maybe that something's afoot underneath. Or if the face is loose and cracked, sometimes that'll indicate that there isn't the proper support underneath it. So it's always a good idea. And again, here's where you should hire a certified chimney sweep to come in and take a peek. They are extensively trained on what to see and how to spot problem areas. And again, you got to take a trip down to the basement or the crawl space and find out, what is supporting this. And, if there's wood in locations where it shouldn't be, like I said, that's just a time bomb lurking. And the longer time passes, that wood that's in the way, it pyrolyzes and just it can ignite at a lower and a lower and a lower temperature.
Well, like always, our guests really bring a lot of information. I call him Dr. Pryor. He's so stinking smart on fire or pyrolysis and things like that. He does have a mechanical background, engineering background. He's a smart cookie. I can't thank him enough for allowing me to visit with him and talk about fires and fireplaces and efficiency. And we're going to have him on again. He offers up a lot of information to our whole industry. He's a masterful craftsman as far as masonry, and he knows a lot about building fires. And also, I don't think we really talked about it, but he also has what they call a Pryor fire. It's worth looking up, understanding the shape and design of it. I put one in a house I was building years ago, and it was an amazing little furnace system that I built in our bedroom. Worked out really good. Hey, thanks a lot for joining us today here on Acid Chimney Sweep. This is Clay Lamb, and we will see you on the rooftop. Well, that was a great message from our buddy Chris Pryor. He's full of wisdom and knowledge, and I enjoy listening to him talk. It seems like every place he goes, he talks. He's got a full room. Everybody's listening because they know they're going to hear some really good stuff. I don't know if you know or not, but he's a licensed engineer, I guess mechanical engineer, but either way. But I like talking to him a lot. He's done a lot for our industry, and I would like to know how many guys he has actually taken time to train in masonry skills. And my son David has actually worked with him on a couple of jobs and building some things with Savory Systems, some testing labs for UL. Been a good walk with Chris Pryor. Well, stay tuned. Next week, we've got Jerry Eisenhower. And if you've not known Jerry Eisenhower, there's some listeners out there. If not, you haven't been in the chimney industry very long, because he's been around. He's been a stanchion in our industry. He's brought a lot of wisdom and knowledge as far as the codes and standards and safety things. Good friend, you're sure to get a load of information from Jerry. I always say Jerry's the only person I know that really doesn't need a microphone when he's speaking, because I guarantee you will hear the bravado from his voice, but it's filled with wisdom. I want to thank you for stopping by here at Acid Chimney Sweep, and if you don't mind, I'd really appreciate if you'd like and subscribe. The algorithm loves it, and they want to know what people want to hear and from whom. Again, this is Clay Lamb with Ask the Chimney Sweep. Thanks for stopping by, and we'll see you on the rooftop.